I'm Chris. I've known Seb for a little over 20 years, for better or worse. I've been quite nervous about this speech, as you might imagine. I've drawn comfort from the fact that it's actually probably similar to some of the concerns that Seb has had about the wedding night. I'm extremely worried about the length. I'm very likely to end up going too fast. At the end of it, I know you'll all be secretly disappointed. But ultimately, though, it is tradition, and if I don't get the kind of responses that I'm hoping for, I'm going to keep hammering away anyway. It's been an incredible day. I'm truly honoured to be stood here in front of you right now. I actually do suspect that the only reason Seb asked me to be his best man is to ensure that I actually turned up. Flights from New York are now so expensive, BA has started to accept gold bullion in payment. And I've had to enforce a rule that I only fly back for weddings and get free clothes for, even if it is chinos. But in actual fact, the last wedding that I did attend, it was Heart and Sorrows. Two lovely friends of ours, Seb, Scott, and I both all shared best man duties. Now, for his part, Seb put in an exemplary performance. He put on a wedding dress during his part of the speech, and he managed to drop and lose the wedding ring moments before the bride entered the church. So in the space of 3 hours, Seb managed to both raise and lower the bar to such extremes that I know whatever happens today, I'm assured that this boy has done it better or worse. It takes a huge amount of pressure off my shoulders, and it just proves what a good friend he is. To show what a good friend I am, I made a promise to Seb that I wouldn't be too offensive today. As much as I'd love to, I decided that I value Seb and Nicci's friendship ahead of tiny penis jokes. Some people know more than I do. I can vividly remember the first day I met Seb. We started a new school today on the very same day. We were 10 years old, and as the new kids, we were made to sit on the same table together, because obviously the best way to get the weird new kids to make friends is to sit them on their own table. Now, luckily we got along almost immediately and quickly found we shared a common interest, not being bullied. There were 3 new kids in total. There was Seb, who'd just moved from Croatia. There was myself, who'd just moved from North Yorkshire. And there was Mark, who sadly is no longer with us. He's not dead, we just didn't like him. So language barriers can obviously cause pretty significant problems when getting to know someone, but thankfully Seb didn't allow my strong northern accent to get in the way. Frustratingly though, Seb always refused to teach me any Croatian words. As a child, learning swear words in foreign languages is a rite of passage. And you'd think that knowing the only foreign child in Surrey, I had a trump card. Seb always refused. And it now strikes me that this was probably so I wouldn't know what Claudia was saying about me around the dinner. On the subject of parents, and for that matter, I would like to raise a glass to Charlotte Claudio, raising such fantastic and questionable stuff. But no, seriously, congratulations on giving birth to an incredibly kind-hearted, funny and good-looking child. I think I'd speak for all of us when I say it's just a shame you couldn't have done it the first time of us. So, as I said, Seb and I quickly became good friends. However, despite this, because I had an August birthday, and Seb always travelled home to Croatia in August, he missed my birthday party for 8 years in a row. I'm not going to say I hold it against him, but but I genuinely consider not turning up today. And not listing grievances, but despite knowing him 2 decades, I've never been invited to Croatia. For that reason, it's fantastic to finally have a chance to meet his Croatian friends and family, who travelled an incredibly long way to be here for this person. And for that reason, I would like to raise a glass to everyone from Croatia tonight. Say welcome to England, and please don't judge me. Dobrodošli. Isn't that welcome? He's giving me looks now. Thankfully, though, I have been to Croatia with some other friends. And I wasn't even best man. I spent the weekend in Zagreb, and though Seb was invited, he couldn't make it for some reason. But wanting to impress the attractive waitress at the bar that I went to, I texted Seb and I said, how do I ask for 3 beers in Croatian? The text that he sent me contained the word tree. And I thought, well, that looks like 3. So this has got to be a genuine text. As it turns out, what I actually asked for, complete with hand signals, was sorry, I feel so guilty now. Your mother's vagina 3 times. To commit. Suffice to say, she was furious. She took forever to bring us our beer, and when she did, there was no sign of her mother. On the subject of saying the wrong thing, while we were growing up, Seb somehow, and this is a very strange thing, but Seb somehow thought the word horny meant annoying. He ended up telling anyone who would listen how horny his sister was. Really, Rhiannon, I'm so sorry I had to mention that. But I've been waiting 15 years for that. It's just seemed like the best place in front of his new wife. So in the early days of secondary school, Seb was the little kid whose ears were growing at twice the rate. I think I'm coming. I'm out of time. And he had the strangest dress sense, including a backpack that looked like it had been made from old road safety clothing. If anything, it's reassuring to know that some things never change. Perhaps unsurprisingly, though, it took Seb a long time to get his first girlfriend at school, and so much so that at one point I thought we were going to have a talk. All of a sudden, however, at the age of 14, he finally saw a girl he liked and made his move. The move in question was unorthodox, and essentially involved picking up a dead bee and putting it in her hair. Astoundingly, the poor girl wasn't impressed, and in her panic to remove the bee, she managed to somehow disembowel it and spread the innards down her hair. Now, Nicci, I don't know what moves he made on you, but all I'll say is I hope you had an EpiPen on you at the time. But I think that's why we got on so well. We were both just as uncool as each other. The first concert we went to together, for example, Seb and I had just turned 15, and the 3 of us were off to see Skunk Anansie, a heavy rock band with a bald lesbian as the lead singer. For some reason, I blame the Disney Channel. We got into our heads that everyone at rock concerts had coloured hair. So we decided to spray our hair bright blue. Now, I got the feeling that something wasn't quite right when Harv first saw us at his front door and nearly choked on his tongue with laughter at the sight of us wearing almost identical clothes with bright blue hair. Our fears were confirmed when we arrived, and the reception to our hair was weird looks and laughter from experienced concertgoers and actual adults. Things got worse as 2 songs in. I realised the hairspray had begun to mix with the sweat and it started to drip down our faces. By the fourth song, my eyes stung so much with hairspray I could barely open them. And by the encore, we looked like emaciated Smurfs. And I will say this, I wrote this before I knew what I was wearing. Our chinos, because why wouldn't we be wearing chinos? Were dyed a horrible pale blue colour. And it's not the first time that I've looked like an idiot alongside this boy. I'm sure it will not be the last. As we grew older, university happened and we moved to different ends of the country. After uni, Seb moved to Southampton and I moved to Reading. But despite the distance, we'd always make a point of meeting up at concerts and getting shamelessly drunk. On one particularly memorable occasion, we travelled to Sheffield to watch Arctic Monkeys. During the support act, after 5 or 6 hours of drinking cheap beer from plastic cups, Seb went to the bar and returned with 2 beakers of red wine. I voiced my disgust because red wine, and he persuaded us to throw them back for a laugh. I did so because peer pressure is a genuine thing, and turned back to walk towards the bar. As I walked back, I heard something that sounded remarkably like Seb throwing up an entire glass of fresh red wine. Sure enough, the joke had backfired all over his shoes. And it sums up Seb's a man with big dreams with a small stomach. Ultimately, though, he is the best friend you could ask for. Nicci, I'm sure of all people, you don't need me to tell you this. Downside being you have to see him naked. It was actually a longer time than you might imagine before I actually got to meet Nicci. But I could instantly tell how besotted he was with her because he stopped cuddling me when drunk. However, the moment that I realised just how great she really was at a housewarming party when they returned from their world travels. Scott, Harv and I were invited, and it was the first weekend of Euro 2012, so we decided to make a day of it. Following a day drinking overpriced beer and watching underachieving footballers, we were beginning to lose the ability to carry out basic cognitive functions, so decided to head back to Seb and Nicci's house. Nicci was already asleep, after that. Probably why. The 3 of us were given sleeping bags by Seb and told to sleep in the living room while Seb went upstairs. I don't remember an awful lot of what happened at this point, but after the lights went out, while fumbling around for my phone by the sofa I was sleeping on, I found a fruit bowl and decided to throw what felt like an orange as hard as I could in the corner of a room where Scott was sleeping. Now, the howl that emerged told me that I hit my target, and what began as a cruel way to wake up a friend turned into a huge food fight entirely in the dark. The next morning I woke up with absolutely zero recollection whatsoever, and I glanced towards Scott, who was looking at me, which I found strange. He was looking slightly past me with his eyes and mouth wide open in shock. I can still hear the fear in his voice as he said, "Gower, we've really messed up." I turned to follow his stare and was greeted with the sight of giant explosions of orange and smeared banana across the entire wall. Panicked, we ran into the kitchen and tried to find cleaning products we could, before running back to the living room and quietly but quickly scrubbing as fast as we could. And at first the stains refused to budge, but after a few fruitless minutes, relief swept over me. Relief swept over me as I noticed the orange began to finally fade. But then quickly retreated as in one smooth stroke, 8 inches of paint tore away from the wall. Now, I'd only met Nicci a few times at this point. This was their very first house together. They'd been in it less than a month, and they were renting. So at that point, I genuinely considered leaving the house and just calling a time on the friendship. Instead, however, partly out of respect, and partly because I would have needed a lift to the train station, I wrote the news to Seb. Now, he wasn't as angry as I expected, and went upstairs to break it to Nicci. What happened next was incredible. She came downstairs, she surveyed the damage, she rolled her eyes like we'd accidentally walked mud into the house, and then calmly and politely listed a number of cleaning and paint products that Seb would need to repair. I genuinely couldn't believe it. To this day, I don't know anyone else who would have dealt with this situation in such a way, with such a level head. And that was the exact moment I realised how amazing she was, and how quite clearly, of anyone, this is the kind of person that Seb needs in his life. As we were driving home, I remember thinking to myself, she would be useful to have around in a murder. And with that, I would like to raise a glass to the bride. Beautiful, sweet, very, very tolerant.
Oh.
The bride.
The bride.
You're nearly there. It's so close. Now, I sense there may be some disapproving looks following that story, as it doesn't paint half Scott and I in a very good light.
It's accurate.
So I would like to say that earlier in that day, for no reason at all, Seb decided it would be amusing to walk into the toilet, take a horrible rubber mat that sits at the bottom of the urinal, pick it up and get peed on 300 times a day, from the pub toilet, walk back into the bar and place it on my head.
Oh no.
It's happened. It's the worst. So before you start questioning the kind of company he keeps, it's exactly the kind of company he deserves. You may have by now gathered that a lot of the stories I've told involve the overconsumption of alcohol. And in all fairness, there was a time when during one particularly unforgiving hangover, Seb looked at me and said, "Can't we just not drink when we see each other? Do something nice and sensible instead." Since then, and since I left the country, we've met up in Dortmund, Barcelona, and Valencia. And the only reason I know I've visited any of those countries is because of stamps in my passport. Quite clearly we cannot. If we played word association and you said Seb, I'd say, he's a man who still writes his name in capital letters. He takes immeasurable pleasure from creating the most revolting and potent drinks, like he's playing with a junior science kit. He talks so loudly that if you spend too long with him, you'll get tinnitus. He closes his eyes in photographs like he's worried the camera's going to steal his soul. Good luck. And he's never owned a phone for more than 2.5 hours without breaking the screen. But he is the most loyal, trustworthy, funny, and peculiar person you could ever have the good fortune to call a friend. And with that, I really couldn't be happier for the both of you today. And looking around the room, I think it's safe to say that everyone else feels the same. So with that, I'd like to raise a glass to Seb and Nicci, Mr. and Mrs. Zulian. Seb and Nicci.
Woohoo!